Emma Carter sat at the far corner of the cafeteria, her back pressed against the cold metal of the vending machine. She held her sketchbook close to her chest, as if it were a shield protecting her from the world around her. The room buzzed with laughter and chatter, but none of it reached her ears. Emma preferred silence, her own company over the chaos of high school life. She wasn't like the other students. While they talked about parties, sports, or their latest crushes, Emma spent her time drawing intricate designs in her notebook. Her sketches were her escape, her safe haven. But today even her art couldn't protect her. "Look who we have here," came a voice dripping with mockery. Logan Parker stood a few feet away, flanked by his usual crew, Ryan and Chloe. They were the self-proclaimed rulers of Westwood High, known for making life miserable for anyone they deemed weird. And unfortunately for Emma, she fit the bill perfectly. Logan smirked, his dark eyes scanning her disheveled appearance, the oversized hoodie, the messy ponytail, and the pencil tucked behind her ear. He took a step closer, his sneakers squeaking against the tiled floor. "What are you doing, Em? Trying to become some kind of artist?" His tone was sharp, cutting through the air like a knife. Emma lowered her gaze, clutching her sketchbook tighter. She didn't want trouble. All she wanted was to finish her lunch in peace so she could go home and forget this day ever happened. But Logan wasn't the type to let things slide. He loved having an audience, especially when it meant humiliating someone weaker than him. "Let me see what you're working on," Logan said, reaching out before Emma could react. In one swift motion, he snatched the sketchbook from her hands. Emma gasped, her heart pounding as she watched him flip through the pages carelessly. Each page contained hours of effort, countless strokes of her pencil bringing imaginary worlds to life. Now they were being treated like trash. Ryan chuckled, leaning over Logan's shoulder. "Wow, these are something else. What is this supposed to be? A dragon?" He pointed at one of the drawings, a majestic creature with scales that shimmered under an imagined sun. "It looks like a lizard with wings," Chloe added, her lips curling into a sneer. "Seriously, Emma, why do you waste your time on this stuff? No one cares." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. She wanted to say something, anything, to defend herself, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she stared at the ground, her fists clenched tightly. She hated feeling powerless, hated the way her voice always seemed to disappear whenever Logan and his friends were around. Logan flipped to another page, his grin widening. "Oh, this one's my favorite," he said, holding up a drawing of a warrior standing tall amidst swirling shadows. "Is this supposed to be you? Dreaming of being brave, huh?" The laughter erupted around them, echoing off the walls of the cafeteria. Emma's vision blurred as tears welled up in her eyes. She hated crying in front of people, but she couldn't stop herself. It wasn't just the teasing. It was the way they made her feel small, insignificant, like nothing she did mattered. "Give it back," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please." Logan pretended not to hear her. Instead, he tore the page out of the sketchbook, crumpling it into a ball. "Oops," he said with mock regret. "Looks like your masterpiece is ruined." Emma's breath hitched. That particular drawing had taken her weeks to complete. Every line, every shadow. It had been perfect. And now it was gone, destroyed in seconds by someone who didn't understand its value. She reached out instinctively, trying to grab the crumpled paper, but Logan tossed it over his shoulder, letting it fall onto the floor. "Leave me alone," Emma muttered, her voice barely audible. She bent down to pick up her sketchbook, which Logan had dropped onto the table. Her hands shook as she gathered the scattered pages, stuffing them back inside. She didn't care about the order anymore. She just wanted to leave. "Oh, don't cry, Emma," Chloe said, feigning sympathy. "Maybe if you tried harder to fit in, people would actually like you." More laughter followed, and Emma knew she couldn't stay there any longer. Clutching her sketchbook to her chest, she turned and walked away, ignoring the jeers and taunts trailing after her. Her legs felt heavy, each step a struggle, but she kept moving until she was out of the cafeteria and into the empty hallway. She leaned against the lockers, taking deep breaths to steady herself. The tears continued to flow, streaking her cheeks. She hated how easily Logan and his friends could break her. Why couldn't they just leave her alone? What had she ever done to deserve this? As she wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie, something caught her eye, a glint of black on the floor near the water fountain. Curious, she approached it cautiously. At first, she thought it might be a piece of trash, but as she bent down to take a closer look, she realized it was a feather. A single jet black feather, smooth and glossy, unlike anything she'd ever seen before. Emma hesitated, then picked it up. It was surprisingly warm to the touch, almost as if it were alive. She turned it over in her fingers, examining its intricate patterns. There was something mesmerizing about it, something that made her heart race despite her sadness. And then it happened. A sudden jolt of energy surged through her body, starting from her fingertips and spreading outward. Emma gasped, nearly dropping the feather. Her vision blurred for a moment and she heard a faint whisper, soft yet commanding. "You are not weak." Emma froze, her eyes widening. The voice hadn't come from anywhere around her. It had come from inside her mind. She looked around, half expecting someone to jump out and laugh at her for falling for such a trick, but the hallway remained empty. Confused and shaken, Emma clutched the feather tightly in her hand. What was happening to her? Was she imagining things? She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. Maybe she was just tired, overwhelmed by everything that had happened today. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that this feather was special. Something about it called to her, urging her to hold on to it. Against her better judgment, she slipped it into the pocket of her hoodie and headed toward the exit. She needed fresh air, space to think. Outside, the park adjacent to the school offered a rare moment of solitude. Emma found her usual spot, a weathered wooden bench beneath an old oak tree, and sat down. The autumn breeze rustled the leaves above her, scattering golden hues across the ground. She pulled the feather out again, staring at it intently. For reasons she couldn't explain, she felt a strange connection to it, as though it held secrets waiting to be uncovered. As she traced its edges with her fingertip, the same warmth returned, stronger this time. The whisper echoed once more, louder and clearer. "You are not weak." Emma's heart skipped a beat. This time she couldn't deny it. Something extraordinary was happening, and somehow she knew her life would never be the same again. The next morning, Emma woke up with a strange feeling lingering in her chest. It wasn't fear or sadness like she usually felt after one of Logan's attacks. It was something else, something new. She reached for the black feather on her nightstand and held it in her hand, studying it closely under the pale light streaming through her window. Its surface shimmered faintly, almost as though it were alive. She still couldn't believe what had happened the day before. The voice, the energy coursing through her body, it all seemed so unreal. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just her imagination. There was something about this feather, something powerful, and whatever it was, it had chosen her. Emma tucked the feather into her backpack before heading downstairs for breakfast. Her mom was already in the kitchen, flipping pancakes on the stove. "Morning, sweetheart," she said cheerfully, glancing over her shoulder. "You okay? You've been quiet lately." Emma forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm fine, just tired, I guess." Her mom nodded but didn't press further. Emma appreciated that about her. She gave space when needed, even if she didn't fully understand what was going on. Emma grabbed a plate of pancakes and sat at the table, picking at them absent-mindedly. Her mind kept drifting back to the feather and the mysterious voice. What did it mean? Who or what was speaking to her? At school, Emma tried to act normal. She avoided eye contact with Logan, Ryan, and Chloe, keeping her head down as she navigated the crowded hallways. But inside, she felt different, stronger somehow. Like the weight that had always pressed down on her shoulders was beginning to lift. During biology class, Emma found herself zoning out. Instead of focusing on the lesson, she kept replaying the events from the previous day in her mind. She could still hear the whisper, "You are not weak." It gave her chills. but not in a bad way. For the first time in years, she believed those words might actually be true. When the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Emma gathered her things and headed outside. She needed some fresh air to clear her thoughts. As she walked across the grassy quad, she noticed Logan and his friends, hanging out near the basketball court. They were laughing loudly, tossing a ball back and forth. Emma instinctively turned away, not wanting to draw their attention, but then something strange happened. As she passed by, Logan suddenly stumbled, dropping the basketball. He cursed under his breath and bent down to pick it up, but his movements were awkward, clumsy. Ryan and Chloe exchanged confused looks, unsure why he'd tripped so randomly. Emma froze, watching from a distance. She hadn't done anything, at least not consciously, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was somehow responsible. A flicker of warmth spread through her fingertips, and she quickly shoved her hands into her pockets. Was the feather affecting her, giving her powers? The idea sounded ridiculous, yet she couldn't dismiss it entirely. After all, she'd already experienced things she couldn't explain. That evening, Emma decided to test the feather's power. She locked her bedroom door and sat cross-legged on the floor, placing the feather in front of her. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes and focused on the sensation she'd felt earlier. The warmth, the energy. At first, nothing happened. Frustrated, she opened her eyes and stared at the feather, wondering if she was wasting her time. Then, without warning, the room grew darker. Shadows seemed to stretch and twist around her, pooling at the edges of her vision. Emma's heart raced as she realized the shadows weren't just moving, they were responding to her. Tentatively, she raised her hand and the shadows followed, swirling gently like smoke caught in a breeze. Emma gasped, lowering her hand. The shadows stilled instantly, retreating back to their original places. Her pulse thundered in her ears. This wasn't possible. None of this should be happening, yet here she was, controlling shadows with nothing more than her will. Before she could process what had just occurred, another voice spoke in her mind. This time, it wasn't the same soft whisper from before. It was deeper, firmer, and carried an air of authority. "I am Cale," the voice said, "and you, Emma Carter, have awakened me." Emma's breath hitched. Who are you?" She whispered aloud, her voice trembling. "I am a warrior," Cale replied. "Once part of an ancient order tasked with protecting worlds from chaos. My enemies overpowered me long ago, forcing me to retreat into this form, a single feather. Until now, I waited for someone worthy to awaken my essence." Emma shook her head, struggling to comprehend. "Why me? I'm nobody. I can't fight, I can't even stand up to bullies." "You underestimate yourself," Cale said firmly. "The strength you feel now is only the beginning. With training, you can harness this power and become more than you ever imagined." Emma wanted to argue, to tell him he had the wrong person. But deep down she knew he was right. Ever since finding the feather, she'd felt a change within herself, a spark of courage she'd never known before. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn to use this power. Over the next few days, Emma began practicing in secret. Every afternoon after school, she'd retreat to the park where she'd first discovered the feather. Sitting beneath the old oak tree, she'd focus on summoning the shadows, learning to control them little by little. At first, it was difficult. The shadows would flicker unpredictably, sometimes vanishing altogether. But with each attempt, she grew stronger, more confident. Cale guided her through every step, his voice steady and reassuring. "Focus your energy," he instructed during one session. "Imagine the shadows as an extension of yourself. Feel them, command them." Emma nodded, closing her eyes. She pictured the shadows swirling around her, obeying her every thought. Slowly, they began to take shape, forming tendrils that danced in the air like living creatures. A small smile tugged at her lips. She was doing it. She was actually doing it. But mastering her powers wasn't the only thing changing. Emma noticed subtle differences in herself too. She stood taller, walked with purpose, and spoke with a newfound confidence. Even her classmates began to notice, though no one could quite put their finger on what had changed about her. One afternoon, as Emma practiced shaping the shadows into solid forms, Cale spoke again. "Your progress is impressive," he said. "But beware, Emma. Power attracts danger. Those who seek to harm you will come, and you must be ready." Emma frowned, opening her eyes. "What kind of danger?" "There are others like me," Cale explained. "Warriors who chose a darker path. One of them, Malachar, is my former ally turned enemy. He seeks revenge against me and will stop at nothing to reclaim the feather. If he finds you—" Emma swallowed hard. "He'll try to hurt me?" "Yes," Cale confirmed gravely, "which is why you must continue training. Strengthen your abilities and prepare for the battles ahead." Emma nodded, determination replacing her initial fear. She didn't know who Malachar was or what he wanted, but one thing was certain. She wouldn't let him or anyone else take this power away from her. Not now. Not ever. By the end of the week, Emma felt like a completely different person. Gone was the timid girl who cowered in the face of bullies. In her place stood someone braver, bolder, someone unafraid to stand her ground. It was Friday afternoon, and Emma was walking home from school when she saw Logan leaning against a lamppost near the park entrance. He smirked as she approached, clearly expecting her to scurry past like usual, but this time Emma stopped. "What do you want, Logan?" she asked, her voice steady, despite the knot forming in her stomach. Logan raised an eyebrow, surprised by her sudden boldness. "Nothing," he said, shrugging. "Just thought I'd see how our little artist was doing." "Well, I'm fine," Emma replied, meeting his gaze. "So leave me alone." For a moment, Logan looked taken aback. Then his expression hardened and he took a step closer. "Careful, Emma. Don't forget your place." Emma clenched her fists, feeling the familiar warmth surge through her veins. Shadows began to gather around her feet, unnoticed by Logan. "I don't have to listen to you anymore," she said quietly but firmly. Logan blinked, finally sensing that something was off. He glanced around nervously, then backed away, muttering something under his breath before hurrying off. Emma watched him go, exhaling slowly. She hadn't used her powers, not really, but the threat had been enough to make him retreat. For the first time in her life, she'd stood up to a bully and won. As she continued toward home, a sense of pride washed over her. The warrior inside her was awakening, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The weekend passed quickly for Emma. She spent most of her time practicing with the shadows, determined to master the power that now flowed through her. Each session left her exhausted but exhilarated. The more she practiced, the stronger she became. Shadows responded to her commands almost instantly now, weaving and twisting like threads in her hands. It was as if they were alive, eager to obey her every thought. Cale's voice guided her constantly, offering advice and encouragement. "You're learning fast," he told her during one session. "But remember, true strength comes not just from wielding power. It comes from understanding yourself." Emma nodded, though she didn't fully grasp what he meant. She was still figuring out who she was beneath the layers of fear and doubt that had defined her for so long. But one thing was clear. She wasn't going to let anyone push her around anymore. Monday morning arrived, and Emma walked into school, feeling different. She no longer slouched or avoided eye contact. Instead, she held her head high, her steps steady and confident. Her classmates noticed the change immediately. Some whispered among themselves, wondering what had happened to make her so bold. Others simply stared, unsure how to react to this new version of Emma Carter. Logan, Ryan, and Chloe, however, weren't impressed. They saw Emma's newfound confidence as a challenge, a threat to their dominance over the school. During lunch, they huddled together at their usual table, whispering heatedly. "What's up with her?" Ryan asked, nodding toward Emma, who sat alone near the windows. "She's acting like she owns the place." "I don't know," Logan muttered, his jaw tightening. "But we can't let her get away with it." People will start thinking she's better than us. Chloe smirked, twirling a strand of her blonde hair. Don't worry, we'll put her back in her place. Later that day, as Emma walked to her locker after class, she felt eyes on her. Glancing over her shoulder, she spotted Logan and his friends trailing behind her. Their expressions were smug, predatory. Emma's heart skipped a beat, but she forced herself to stay calm. She'd faced them before, and won. She could do it again. "Hey, Emma," Logan called out, his tone mocking. "Where do you think you're going?" Emma stopped and turned to face him. "To my locker. Is there a problem?" Logan chuckled, exchanging glances with Ryan and Chloe. "Yeah, actually there is. You've been acting pretty full of yourself lately. Maybe it's time someone reminded you where you belong." Emma crossed her arms, refusing to back down. "I belong wherever I want to be, and I'm done letting you tell me otherwise." Her words caught Logan off guard. For a moment, he hesitated, unsure how to respond. Then his expression darkened, and he stepped closer, towering over her. "You really think you're tough now, huh? What are you going to do about it?" Emma clenched her fists, feeling the familiar warmth spreading through her body. Shadows began to gather at her feet, subtle enough that only she could sense them. She didn't need to use her powers, not yet, but she wanted Logan to know she wasn't afraid. "I don't have to prove anything to you," Emma said evenly, "but if you keep messing with me, you'll regret it." Logan laughed, though there was an edge of unease in his voice. "Oh yeah? What are you gonna do? Cry some more?" Before Emma could respond, something unexpected happened. The shadows around her feet surged forward, lashing out like invisible whips. Logan stumbled backward, startled, as if pushed by an unseen force. Ryan and Chloe gasped, looking around frantically for the source of the disturbance. Emma blinked, surprised by her own reaction. She hadn't meant to unleash the shadows, not like that. But the look of shock on Logan's face filled her with a strange sense of satisfaction. "Stay away from me," she warned, her voice firm. "This isn't a game anymore." Logan glared at her, his bravado crumbling. Without another word, he turned and stormed off, followed closely by Ryan and Chloe. Emma watched them go, her chest rising and falling with each breath. She had stood her ground, and won. Again. News of the confrontation spread quickly through the school. By the end of the day, everyone was talking about Emma Carter, the quiet girl who had somehow stood up to Logan Parker and his crew. Some students admired her courage, while others were wary of her sudden transformation. Whispers followed her wherever she went, but Emma ignored them. She didn't care what people thought anymore. All that mattered was proving to herself that she was strong enough to handle whatever came her way. That evening, as Emma practiced in the park, Kyle spoke to her again. "You handled yourself well today," he said, approving herself. "But remember, your enemies will grow bolder. Be prepared." Emma nodded, focusing on shaping the shadows into intricate patterns. "I know," she replied, "but I'm not scared anymore. I can take care of myself." Kyle's voice softened. "Courage is important, Emma, but arrogance can be dangerous. Keep training, and never underestimate those who oppose you." Emma took his words to heart. She knew she still had much to learn, but she also knew she was capable of great things. The warrior inside her was growing stronger with each passing day. A few days later, Emma encountered another challenge, one far greater than Logan and his friends. As she walked home from school, she noticed a strange figure standing beneath the streetlight ahead. It was tall and cloaked in darkness, its form shifting and flickering like smoke. Emma froze, her heart pounding. This wasn't human. It couldn't be. The figure turned its head, locking eyes with her. Its gaze was piercing, cold, and filled with malice. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. She wanted to run, to scream, but her body wouldn't move. The creature stepped forward, its movements fluid yet menacing. "Emma Carter," it rasped, its voice echoing in her mind. You carry something that does not belong to you. Emma's hand instinctively went to her pocket, clutching the black feather tightly. Who are you? She demanded, her voice trembling. I am Malachar, the creature replied, and I have come to reclaim what is mine. Fear gripped Emma's chest, but she refused to show it. Summoning all her strength, she raised her other hand, calling forth the shadows. They swirled around her protectively, forming a barrier between her and the creature. Malachar chuckled, unimpressed. You think these tricks can stop me? You are but a child playing with forces beyond your comprehension. Emma gritted her teeth, focusing on maintaining the shadowy shield. Leave me alone, she said, her voice steadier now. I won't let you hurt me. For a moment, Malachar seemed amused. Then, without warning, he lunged forward, his claw-like hands reaching for her. The shadows faltered, struggling to hold him back. Emma cried out, pouring every ounce of energy she had into reinforcing the barrier. You cannot win, Malachar hissed. Kyle has made you his pawn, but he cannot save you. Hearing Kyle's name ignited a spark of anger within Emma. She wasn't just a pawn, she was a fighter. With a fierce cry, she unleashed a surge of energy, sending the shadows exploding outward. Malachar staggered back, momentarily stunned. Seizing the opportunity, Emma turned and ran, her legs carrying her as fast as they could. She didn't stop until she reached her house, slamming the door shut behind her. Leaning against the wall, she slid to the floor, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Kale's voice echoed in her mind. Are you all right? Emma nodded weakly, clutching the feather to her chest. That was Malachar, wasn't it? Yes, Kyle confirmed grimly. He will not give up easily. You must continue training. Only then can you hope to defeat him. Emma closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. She had faced her first real enemy and survived. But she knew this was only the beginning. Malachar would return stronger and more determined than ever. As she drifted off to sleep that night, one thought lingered in her mind. She was ready. Ready to fight, ready to protect herself, and ready to embrace the warrior within. The days following her encounter with Malachar were a blur for Emma. She couldn't shake the memory of his cold, piercing gaze or the way his presence had filled her with dread. Every shadow seemed to whisper his name. Every creak of the floorboards made her heart race. She knew he wasn't gone. Not really. He was out there, waiting, watching, planning his next move. But she refused to let fear control her. Instead, she threw herself into training harder than ever before. Each afternoon, after school ended, she retreated to the park where it all began. Beneath the old oak tree, she practiced summoning and shaping the shadows, pushing herself to new limits. Her movements became sharper, more precise. The shadows responded faster, bending to her will like extensions of her own body. Kyle remained by her side, his voice steady and encouraging. You're improving, he told her one evening as she sent a tendril of darkness spiraling into the air. But remember, Malachar is no ordinary foe. His power is vast, and his cruelty knows no bounds. Emma nodded, though a flicker of doubt lingered in her mind. Could she truly stand against someone like him? She had faced Logan and his friends, even driven them away with her newfound strength. But Malachar, he was different. He wasn't human. He wasn't bound by the same rules as everyone else. I'm not ready yet, Emma admitted quietly, lowering her hand. The shadows dissolved into the air, leaving only silence behind. What if I fail? Kyle's tone softened. Failure is not the end. It is part of the journey. Even the strongest warriors have fallen at some point. What matters is how you rise again. Emma sighed, staring at the black feather clutched in her palm. Its surface shimmered faintly under the fading sunlight. I just don't want anyone else to get hurt because of me. You cannot protect everyone, Kyle said firmly. But you can fight for what is right. That is your purpose now. Emma didn't respond. She knew Kale was right, but the weight of responsibility still pressed heavily on her shoulders. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for everyone who might be caught in the crossfire. As the week went on, strange things began happening around town. Streetlights flickered unpredictably, casting eerie shadows across empty sidewalks. Animals grew restless, their behavior erratic. Even the weather seemed off, with sudden gusts of wind tearing through the streets without warning. Emma noticed these changes immediately. At first, she thought it was her imagination playing tricks on her. But when she overheard snippets of conversation at school, students talking about strange dreams and unsettling encounters, she realized something bigger was at play. Malachar was testing her, probing her defenses. And he wasn't working alone. Shadows began appearing in places they shouldn't, twisting and writhing like living creatures. They lurked in corners, beneath benches, and in the darkest alleys, watching silently. Emma could feel them whenever she passed by, their presence heavy and suffocating. One night, as she lay in bed unable to sleep, she heard a faint scratching sound coming from outside her window. Her heart raced as she sat up, pulling the covers closer to her chest. Slowly, she crept toward the window and peeked outside. The street below was empty, bathed in pale moonlight. But something moved at the edge of her vision, a dark shape darting between the trees. It was small, almost cat-like, but its eyes glowed an unnatural red. Emma froze, her breath catching in her throat. Whatever it wasn't normal. Suddenly, the creature turned its head and locked eyes with her. A shiver ran down her spine as it let out a low growl, bearing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Without thinking, Emma slammed the window shut and pulled the curtains closed. She backed away, her pulse thundering in her ears. "Kyle," she whispered urgently. "Are you there?" His voice came instantly, calm but alert. "What is it?" "There's something outside my house," she said, her voice trembling. It's watching me." "Stay calm," Kyle instructed. "Focus on your power. Let the shadows guide you." Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She reached for the black feather on her nightstand, gripping it tightly. As she concentrated, she felt the familiar warmth spreading through her body. Shadows gathered around her, forming a protective barrier that filled the room. The scratching sound returned, louder this time. Something hit the window with enough force to rattle the glass. Emma flinched, but forced herself to stay focused. Summoning all her strength, she sent the shadow surging outward, engulfing the area outside her window. A high-pitched screech pierced the night, followed by silence. Emma waited, her heart pounding, until she was sure the creature was gone. Only then did she release her hold on the shadows, letting them fade back into the darkness. The next morning, Emma arrived at school feeling drained but determined. She couldn't keep running from Malachar and his minions. Sooner or later, she would have to face them head-on. But how? She wasn't strong enough, not yet. Her thoughts were interrupted when she spotted Logan and his friends near the entrance. Chloe was holding court, regaling a group of students with exaggerated stories about Emma's recent standoff. "She thinks she's so tough now," Chloe sneered, flipping her hair dramatically. "But trust me, she'll crack sooner or later." Emma clenched her fists, resisting the urge to confront them. She didn't need distractions right now, not with Malachar closing in. As she walked past, Logan called out, his tone mocking. "Hey, Emma, still hiding behind your little magic tricks?" Emma stopped, turning to face him. For a moment, she considered walking away, but something inside her snapped. She stepped closer, her expression hardening. "You don't know anything about me, Logan, so why don't you do us both a favor and shut up?" Logan blinked, clearly taken aback by her boldness. Then his smirk returned. "Oh, look who's acting brave again. Maybe we should remind you how things work around here." Before he could finish his sentence, Emma raised her hand, calling forth the shadows. They swirled menacingly around her, causing several students to gasp and step back. Logan's bravado faltered, his eyes widening in alarm. "Try it," Emma said softly, her voice laced with steel. "See what happens." Logan hesitated, exchanging nervous glances with Ryan and Chloe. Finally, he muttered something under his breath and stormed off, his friends trailing behind him. Emma watched them go, a small smile tugging at her lips. She had won, for now. That evening, as Emma practiced in the park, Cale spoke to her once more. "Your confidence is growing," he observed. "But remember, true strength comes from within. Do not rely solely on your powers." Emma nodded, focusing on shaping the shadows into intricate patterns. "I know," she replied, "but sometimes it feels like I don't have a choice." "You always have a choice," Kyle reminded her, "and soon you will face the greatest test of all. Are you prepared?" Emma paused, her hands trembling slightly. She wasn't sure she was ready, but she also knew she couldn't run forever. Malachar wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted, and she couldn't let him win. "I'll do whatever it takes," Emma said finally, her voice firm. "Even if it means risking everything." Kyle fell silent, his approval evident. Emma took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. She didn't know when or where Malachar would strike next, but she was ready. Ready to fight, ready to protect, and ready to embrace the warrior she had become. The night before the final confrontation, Emma barely slept. Her mind raced with thoughts of Malachar, his glowing red eyes haunting her dreams. She could feel his presence growing stronger, closer. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, pressing against her from all sides. Every shadow seemed to whisper his name. Every breeze carried a sense of foreboding. When morning came, Emma rose early. The black feather rested on her nightstand, its surface gleaming faintly in the dim light. She picked it up, holding it tightly in her hand. The warmth it gave off was comforting, but it also reminded her of the responsibility she now carried. Today would be the day. She could feel it. Kyle's voice echoed in her mind, soft and steady. "Are you ready?" Emma nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. "I have to be," she whispered. "There's no turning back now." After school, Emma made her way to the old warehouse on the outskirts of town, the same place where she had first found the feather. It felt fitting that everything would come full circle here. The building loomed ahead, its windows shattered and walls covered in graffiti. Weeds sprouted through cracks in the concrete, and the air smelled of rust and decay. As she approached, the shadows around her began to stir, swirling like smoke at her feet. Emma focused on them, drawing strength from their presence. She wasn't alone. Cale was with her, guiding her every step of the way. Inside the warehouse, the air was thick with tension. Dust motes floated in the dim light filtering through broken windows. In the center of the room stood Malachar, cloaked in darkness. His form shifted constantly like smoke caught in a breeze. His glowing red eyes locked onto hers, piercing through the gloom. "So you've come," Malachar said, his voice low and menacing. "I wondered if you'd have the courage." Emma stepped forward, her hands clenched into fists. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," Malachar chuckled, the sound echoing eerily in the empty space. "Brave words for someone so young, but bravery won't save you, child. You are nothing more than a vessel, a pawn in a game you cannot win." "I'm not a pawn," Emma shot back, her voice firm despite the fear bubbling inside her. "I chose this. I chose to fight." Malachar tilted his head, studying her. "We shall see how long that resolve lasts." Without warning, he lunged toward her, his claw-like hands reaching out. Shadows erupted from the ground, twisting and writhing like living creatures. Emma reacted instinctively, summoning her own shadows to counter his attack. They clashed in midair, forming a chaotic dance of darkness that filled the room. Emma gritted, her teeth, pouring every ounce of energy she had into the battle. The shadows obeyed her commands, weaving around her like a protective shield. But Malachar was relentless, his power far greater than anything she had faced before. Each strike sent shockwaves through the warehouse, shaking the very foundation. "You're strong," Malachar admitted, his tone mocking. "But strength alone won't defeat me." Emma faltered for a moment, her confidence wavering. He was right. She couldn't match him blow for blow. There had to be another way. Closing her eyes, she focused inward, searching for the source of her power. It wasn't just about controlling the shadows. It was about understanding them, becoming one with them. Remember who you are, Kale's voice urged softly. You are more than your fears, more than your doubts. Emma took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. She opened her eyes, her gaze steady. This isn't just about me, she said aloud, her voice ringing clear. It's about everyone you've hurt, everyone you've tried to destroy. With renewed determination, she unleashed a surge of energy, sending the shadows spiraling outward in a massive wave. They engulfed Malachar, pulling him into their depths. He roared in fury, thrashing against the darkness, but it held firm. You can't hold me forever, Malachar snarled, his voice distorted with rage. I am eternal. Not anymore, Emma replied, her voice calm but resolute. With a final burst of strength, she commanded the shadows to collapse inward, compressing Malachar into a single point of darkness. For a moment, there was silence. Then with a deafening crack, the shadows dissipated, leaving only emptiness behind. Emma fell to her knees, exhausted but victorious. The warehouse was still, the oppressive weight of Malachar's presence gone. She looked down at the black feather in her hand, its glow fading slowly. You did it, Kale said, his voice filled with pride. You've proven yourself worthy. Emma managed a weak smile. Does this mean it's over? For now, Kale replied. But remember, the world is vast, and there will always be battles to fight. Your journey as a warrior has only just begun. In the days that followed, life in Westwood returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could be. The strange occurrences stopped, and the town seemed lighter, freer. Emma noticed subtle changes, in herself too. She walked taller, spoke louder, and carried herself with a quiet confidence that others couldn't help but notice. Logan and his friends kept their distance, avoiding her entirely. Some students even approached her, thanking her for standing up to the bullies. Emma smiled politely but didn't dwell on their praise. She knew her strength came from within, not from what others thought of her. At home, she placed the black feather on her nightstand, watching as it shimmered faintly under the moonlight. It was a reminder of everything she had been through, and everything she was capable of. That night, as she drifted off to sleep, Kale's voice whispered one last time. Rest, Emma Carter. You've earned it. Emma closed her eyes, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She wasn't just the girl who had been bullied anymore. She was a warrior, a protector, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them.